Welcome to Pagan Crafting. I'm your host, Kara. Today we're going to go over graveyard etiquette and graveyard dirt etiquette and collection. We're going to go over some different meanings of different types of graveyard dirt. So if you wish to learn some more goodies today, join me today as we visit my local graveyard. Welcome to Pagan Crafting. I'm your local art and green witch. Today we are taking some peaceful enjoyment, some quiet serenity time here in one of Edmonton wasn't a ghost, it was squirrels. One of Edmonton's oldest cemeteries. This cemetery was started in about 1880, and it was in about 1890 is when Edmonton started to form about 700 people around then. And then about 1905 is when Edmonton became the capital of my province. So had some fun respectfully doing some research as well. And that is one of my things that I like to talk about too today. We're going to talk about cemetery etiquette and graveyard etiquette. I'm super distracted by I keep looking up. I'm really distracted here. It's so lovely. And I got this gorgeous tree here in the background. I had to choose that for the background. It's so beautiful. So graveyard dirt etiquette and cemetery etiquette is what we're going to go over today. Now I just got my notes. Etiquette is when you first kind of come in, you want to announce yourself. Upon entry, it's good to acknowledge the gate guardian. Ask permission to enter, state your intention, acknowledge who's there. You can feel if you're welcome or not. If you're there for some spiritual work, this is something that you need to acknowledge and see if you're allowed to do or not. I'm visiting family today. I'm trying to hunt down one of my grandfathers on my dad's side's grave. I'm not having much luck today, so I'm going to have to come back with my mom. She remembers where it is. So another thing you can do is upon entry is to bring an offering. So a graveyard tea, that's a personal blend. I use a bay leaf, mugwort, and peppermint. You can also bring blessed moon water. You can bring some food, apple. I like bringing apples. That's the Celt in me. Or coins, flowers. Bring an offering to not only maybe the grave that you're visiting, but also the entire cemetery. Now, before I go through a few more things, the most important thing is rules. If there isn't rules posted at the front of the cemetery, the graveyard, it's good to go on a website, check it out, because each cemetery is a little different. So some prefer only plastic flowers, some forbid plastic flowers because they don't want the plastic flying all over the place as the lawn gets mowed. Some of them allow vases, some of them only allow vases that are inlaid into the gravestone or the headstone itself. So something good to check too. I like to go over the difference here first between a cemetery and a graveyard. So a cemetery is not attached usually to a church, and a graveyard is attached to the church. So a fun little cemetery is kind of like a non-denominational Christian, where it's just a bit of everybody. Here in Canada, a bit of everybody can share these grounds. One of the things I like to do, our cemeteries here in the city and even in the outskirts are quite big. We have to drive into them, so we don't have smaller ones around my neighborhood. I don't live near a village. I live in quite a large capital city. Even when I go out into the country, you still have to drive in, and then there's a place to park, and then you walk the rest of the way in. So if you can take off your shoes and ground yourself and be one with nature and be one with the spirits, permission pending, I think that's an amazing thing to do. That's really cool. You want to protect yourself from spirits, so you want to wear like a talisman, an amulet, an enchanted piece that maybe has your extra protection, some stones, crystals, something in your pocket to help you. You could also wear a veil, protective jewelry, a talisman. This is especially so when doing any spirit workings in the graveyard, so definitely something to have. I did not bring, I think it's in my Jeep. I didn't bring with me right here. What I was saying there, I did bring my talisman, but I plan to do some other work another day. So I plan to kind of bring that when I want to try to find my grandfather's grave and ask him a few questions to find out some cool stuff. Anyway, what you can bring, man, bring a blanket. Just enjoy yourself. I'm sitting here on this stone bench. I'm not sitting on a grave at all. And they have stone benches like going all the way up the path here and have some down here along the way. So there's lots of little places for you to just sit and talk, meditate and hang out. So things you can bring a book. We like bringing tea. We bring our graveyard tea, which kind of no other better name for it, and that's the bay leaf peppermint and mugwort I was telling you about. I'll do another little short video on all the meanings and reason why we chose that. So what you can bring is a blanket, a book, tea, food. Moon water is offering, talisman, amulet, spirit jar, tarot cards. If you do take any leaves, branches, we'll cover that. Maybe an offering to, as thanks, tobacco, a piece of your hair, a strand of your hair to leave a DNA as a thank you. What else could you bring up? Pendulum coins, apples, food offerings. Never leave a lit candle, but if you're allowed it, bring a candle while you're hanging out with your family or your adopted grave. Getting to that in just a moment. Adopted grave. What can you do there? Now, the lady that just passed by here, she was just out for a walk. She wasn't visiting. I thought she was searching for a grave. She was just enjoying the area, enjoying the peace and the quiet. You can keep in touch with friends and family. You can acknowledge the dead. You can remind yourself to make life count. Some alone time, just some peaceful and quiet. Reason why I like coming here. One of my favorite things to do since I was 7 years old, because my grandfather passed away when I was 6. I started visiting graves with my grandmother at, I guess shortly after he passed. And then we'd go see him for Father's Day, his birthday, and then for beginning of springtime and to clean off the grave. So I actually I had to go get the water from the well, from the pump for Grandma. So every time I'd go down the hill, come back up with the water, I'd talk to graves all along the way, not realizing this is what I was already doing as a young child. I adopted graves. So adopting graves also is a great thing to do when you don't live at home anymore, when you don't live close to home, close to your family. A friend of mine told me that it was unusual. She can never get graveyard dirt from any family because they cremate everybody. Then they spread their ashes in their favorite place. There isn't even a burial ground to come to talk to where the ashes are. It's more so, please don't stop. It's a burial ground not where the ashes are, but where they're spread. So they have to go visit a certain beautiful place to see that. Now, another thing is a great thing to do is, of course, is spirit work. It's a wonderful place to talk to your ancestors, to talk to people that maybe settled in the place. Those of you that are adopted or away or living in a different country, you're not even close to your ancestral ground. Adopt a grave. It's so cool. You can just say hi, bring in some flowers, clean off their grave, take away the rubbish that's around it, pay respects. Photography. I love photography. I was here earlier and wasted my time a little bit here earlier and just got some beautiful shots before it started getting a little darker. We're getting here close to here at sunset. It's starting to come down, so we'll see how much longer I can edit or film this for. Okay, our next one is graveyard dirt etiquette. It seems to be kind of unrealistic need or want right now. It seems to be a trend when I just did some research on what's the up and the up on any new school, anything new, anything offensive, anything that, anything new that I haven't resourced on my own from the past. And I find that, do you really need it? Is it necessary? Do you really, really, really need to collect it? And be careful when you're collecting. Know the why. Why do you actually need this? Can you use other things in replacement of? Do you actually need this? Know whose dirt it is that you're taking. Are you just going up to any gravesite and taking, or are you just taking a little bit from the opening of the gateway? And where? What about the land? The settled land? Have you done your history research on who was here first? Who was here before them? Who settled in this area? Who settled after this area? Who took this area? Who fought on this land? So many different things could either increase a positivity or taint the dirt. Now you need to ask yourself why you really need it. The graveyard dirt holds energy. It's like it, I believe, and many other people believe it possesses the traits of the person it was used to bury. So earth from a loving, happy, loved one could be called upon for love spells, family spells, maybe anything to help out the love inside a family union. The earth from a wealthy person could help out money spells. Earth from a wicked person could be used for malevolent workings or curses. Famous writers or artists could instill a creative spark. Egyptians use it in magical practices for cursing and necromancy. Enslaved African Americans use graveyard dirt roasted with bat powder, and this would help tie them or prevent their owners from mistreating them. So what you need to do first before anything, I would suggest only use graveyard dirt from someone who you know. Now, if you do find a famous writer, a famous musician, and you want to be a famous guitar player, if you're allowed, with offerings, with respect, and we'll go through that in a minute, how we can do that. If that is cool in your beliefs, your culture, I say go for it. But if you don't know the person, oh my gosh, like what if it was a person who was so violent and they were a murderer? The earth, the ground could be so tainted, and you would not want to use that dirt. That would be for some wicked workings. That would be for some horrible workings. So first you want to do is you want to go by feeling and instinct. Taking this dirt, how do you feel? Do you just kind of feel off? You're not quite sure? Then go with that. It's probably right that you're not supposed to have. Can you find dirt from somewhere else, from a trusted resource? Do you have a friend or family member that have someone where they could go and get graveyard dirt for you from someone that they know that was a beautiful soul? You can't go by feeling, you can't go by instinct. You don't have maybe a higher psychic ability or higher sense, or you're just not sure, even if you're just second guessing yourself. One thing is really good to use actually is a pendulum. So, and if you don't have a pendulum, you can make a spirit jar. And you could use a pendulum with a spirit jar. I'll have the link to how to make one of those. Of course, if you have a pendulum, you have a spirit jar. And now if you don't have a grave, you can use a grave to take from, or you're just not sure and you really want to use something from the essence. Like for example, when I went to see my family in out east, I've never been there, so I've been doing graveyard rubbing since I was I believe 8 to 10 years old. I've been doing graveyard rubbings. And where was I going with that? I was doing some graveyard rubbings in Upper New York when I got to see some family out east. We got to find graveyards from our ancestors that go back think it was 5 or 6 generations. And so we're going back a couple hundred years. And there was this huge maple tree that was right beside all the graves. And I was like, oh my gosh, this tree. I'm looking at this tree. I call my daughter. I'm like, come hug me, come hug this tree. And she's like, oh my God, the aunties are watching. And I'm like, no, we're hugging. I don't care what anybody else thinks. This is about us. This is our family. This is our lineage. This is our, like, you're hugging this tree. And she didn't want it. She's like, oh mom, and doing the young, tweeny 12, 13-year-old. Oh my God, mom. I'm like, now hug this tree, feel the love of this tree, and our ancestors are actually together. The blood of this tree, the blood of them is a part of each other. So I didn't take any graveyard dirt there. I had a lot of travels to come back, and I also was with some people that probably would have offended. They may not have cared for that, and so I didn't even flirt with the idea. But I did get some maple leaves, and I pressed them in a bucket. I have them in my book of shadows. These maple leaves has the blood of my ancestors in. So that is something cool and magical to work with. I also grabbed a live branch and a dead leaf, and 2 live leaves. And it's powerful magic. That's powerful energy. And I'm going to bring those out when we do some ancestor altar work. And we're going to be working together with those. A substitute that is also used is ground up patchouli. It's in its powder form. It's actually generally considered a traditional substitute. And that is something else you could use. So branches, leaves, pine cones, pine nettles, things around there. Again, if you choose to adopt a grave, try to do a little research about the person if you can. It's sometimes some graveyards I've visited around Alberta where I've found a lot of 3 to 6-year-old children, a lot of 4-year-olds, 3 to 6-year-old children, and a lot of young mothers had passed away. Doing some research, finding it was the Spanish flu in the early 1900s that wiped out quite a bit in that little village. That place was extremely cool because each one of the graves, they had a rod or cast iron gate all the way around, and each of them, some of them had little pendulums that looked like you'd see. I call them pendulums because they acted like a pendulum for me. It was so cool. I'll tell you about that in a minute. Back to interrupting myself. It had little things like you'd see like they hang off of a curtain rod, kind of like the little dangly tassels, but they were pendulums. So I was walking by and it was moving, and I walked by and I'm like, hey, how are you? And I moved the other way, and I'm like, well, it's not windy enough for that. So I just sat down and started talking, and it asked clockwise for yes, counter for no. And it was really, really cool. I just had a chat with someone in the graveyard for a while. So ever since then, I've used a pendulum myself and brought one in. And that graveyard in particular gave me the heebie-jeebies. There was a little spirit in there who just shooting back his energy because he was feeling me out there. Yeah, he wasn't the gate guardian either. It just wasn't very cool. But I see some people coming here, so I'm going to wrap her up here. So, unbeknownst to me, where I just filmed my talk to you about the etiquette of graveyard and the graveyard dirt, 20 feet away was actually my ancestors. My mom just brought me here a couple days ago, and we found great grandma Stuart Myrtle right here, and great grandfather George Stewart, Irish. And then we have the Humphreys over here, where is Harold and Eileen Humphreys. Eileen is the daughter of Myrtle and George, and Harold, of course, her husband, and my grandfather and my grandmother right here, right where I was sitting, 20 feet away. So we came by with my mom and my daughter, and we cleaned off the graves. There was some lichen on the Stewart's grave that was going to start to eat the cones, so we got all that cleaned off. There was some grass overgrown. Wasn't any moss as I thought, but the grass definitely was overgrown, so we cleaned that up and we edged that up. So what I like to do now is go over some of the questions that you had for me. So in the company of my ancestors, let's rock that together, shall we? So I still can't believe that just right over there, I was just sitting a couple days ago, not even knowing I was chatting with you next to my ancestors. It's so cool. It's funny how things like that happen. Was I guided? Was I brought here? Was it memory? Because all the trees are bigger and I was smaller then. Oh, wait, let's go over some questions. We have one here from Adrienne Lynn. And she said, I've always wondered about the collection of graveyard dirt. I assume you want to use family plots, or do you ask for permission? Can or does it come from a place that no one is buried? She said, I have many questions and entirely blank on the subject, looking forward to this. Okay, my love. Yes, if you absolutely can, try to take from only family plots. But then again, as I'm sitting right here chilling out with great grandmother Stewart, in all due respect, she was a grumpy Gus. She's kind of cranky. Would I want to use that dirt? Not quite sure. My grandmother Eileen, her daughter, would I want to use her dirt? Yeah, a lot of love from that woman. Kindness, love. We crafted together. We did so much together. She helped me out with my homework. She took care of me. I was with her every single weekend. And I got to learn things from my grandfather, her husband. He was in the Navy, and he taught me tons of knots. And by 4 years old, I was tying knots and braiding hair. He taught me my knots, and I had to learn nautical knots and some standard reef knots and whatnot. But anyway, I never could grasp the bowline with him. I was just too young for that one. So today I've brought my ranger blanket, my military blanket, some offerings. I have some water. I have some rose quartz to represent my grandmother. She had a lot of love with her. So I have some little water offerings and things here. So maybe if you do have, I'm kind of going off track, sorry. So what I'm saying is you might want to be careful from even the plots of land or the dirt that you get from your family. I do have some dirt from my stepdad. In his later on years, he was very generous, very kind, very wonderful man. In our earlier years together, the kindness wasn't quite there. We bunted heads. We argued a lot. It was a shame. We wasted that energy together, and we bonded at least in our both old age. So using that dirt now, it would be kind of a 50-50 depending on the intention, right? Now, what if you don't have plots and land that you can get? There's many different substitutes. There's so many different types of dirt. Each type of dirt means different things. I think I should do a video on dirt, because there's so many types of each dirt. It's just like different types of water. Use different things. I mentioned earlier you could use patchouli ground as a substitute for graveyard dirt. Buying graveyard dirt online, I don't know, man. Unless they take some pictures and show in their photos, I was there, I got some video, that's my grandma and grandpa, or I don't know, or I was just chilling in the graveyard and stole some dirt. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. Because when I've collected graveyard dirt, it's quite hard and chunky. And the graveyard dirt I've seen online when I've like scoped out online, it's like perfectly like potted dirt. Just saying. Watch out. Definitely you would ask for permission. Even though this is my family, I'm still gonna ask permission. I didn't take from my grandma and grandpa. I didn't know my grandfather. My grandmother passed away right before I was born, my great grandma. So I miss meeting her. I've only met her as an infant anyway. So I don't really know that energy to work with that energy. Now, again, what if you can't get dirt? I would try to use a substitute or don't use it at all. If you don't know for sure, don't use it. That's just kind of my belief. If you don't know the exact essence of the person, I don't know enough about great grandma Myrtle Stewart. I asked my mom about her when we were cleaning off the gravestones, and she searched her brain, and she only knew her. She didn't know the Grandpa George, but she wasn't really a nice lady. So I don't want to work with that energy. Sorry. Okay. All right. All right. So the next question here from Torva, the Norse witch. Just a thought. When I visit, I take my shoes off, and as a sign of respect, weather permitting, of course. So my question is there any little rituals that people do when visiting the ancestors? Looking forward to this. Kara, blessings. With ours, it's a little harder to do here, and I live in a capital city where we drive in, and there's a lot of traffic, and there's a lot of people here. There's a lot of walkers. Like when I was just waiting for that car to drive by because they're loud, the male driver kept his eyes forward, and his wife just stared me down as I'm sitting in front of a camera at a graveyard. But whatever, I could be making a video for my daughter, which this is really cool lineage left behind on YouTube for my daughter, learning about my family right here. And this is 1871. George was born to 1948. Myrtle was 1885 to 1974, and this grave site was started around the 1880s. So they were here right when they were here in Edmonton. They were pioneers. They're one of the first ones too. Sorry, I don't know where I was going with that. Let me get back and interrupt myself. So taking off shoes can be a little harder when there's a lot of people, a lot of traffic here. Little rituals that people can do when visiting the ancestors. I always always say good day when I'm coming in. If the little girl comes out of me, when I used to come to the graveyard a few times a year with my grandmother, I used to have to walk all the way that way actually, and down, I look at it now, it was like down a hill. The hill was so far, and now like, oh, it's like 4 or 5 steps and we're like down a hill. But when you're little, you got little legs and it's like really far and steep. I had to collect some water from the pump and bring it all the way back up, and I realized it's probably right there. But it's memories, and the little girl comes out, and I adopted graves, and everywhere I walk, I'd have to walk back the same way, and I walk the same way there, and I started to recognize certain graves, and I always start to say hello to them every time, knowing I was adopting graves and saying hi to them all the time, and I felt the essence, and I felt like I was talking to people all the time. And little rituals you can do. Just go say hi. Just go say hi, enjoy. The rituals in our family would be coming to clean the graves, the blessing of the graves. Ukrainian side of my mother's side, that's around Mother's Day in North America. And that is the blessing of the graves and blessing of the ancestors. And you come bring offerings to the church, and then they bless the graves for you. And just the ones that were there bringing offerings, of course. Different little rituals that people can do. I'm all about bringing offerings. I like to bring an apple, little rituals of thank you. I have my moon water, my blessed moon water, that I actually have it charged up this time with rose quartz. At the bottom I'll show you in a little bit. And I like to leave little crystals behind. I don't mind that. So does my daughter. Sometimes she'll bring them, sometimes she'll bring them with her, sometimes she leaves them, sometimes she just has them as an offering, sometimes she just, nope, they're not, they're coming with me, but she'd wind up using them while she's conversing. It's so cool. Different things that you can do. Okay, so different things for my ancestors, for we would be cleaning up the graves and tidying things up and just making sure things stand the test of time is some of the rituals that we do. Witchcraft rituals, I don't really do any, really, when it comes to my family. I just like to come and talk and hang out, tell them I miss them, tell them what's going on, get caught up. They probably know, but I like to tell them, like, no, I'm just hanging out with you. Kind of get them sped up at what's going on, and the gossip in the family, all the newborns, deaths, marriages, that kind of fun stuff. Just, I don't know, just regular conversation is that for me mainly. Curly Happy Jew 5 CN. I would like to know if there's anything you can say as you leave the cemetery to say thank you or something. I hope this makes sense. Definitely. Say goodbye. Say thank you so very much. Just like you're just leaving, say I love you. Any adopted graves you're coming by, say I'll see you next time. You know, leave them some beautiful flowers behind. There doesn't need to be a whole lot of ritual when coming in. It's a sign of respect, like when you're coming in and out of a door. And the things that we can say is in poetry or romantic mantras, but I treat the cemetery as I'm walking into someone's house. I'm going to knock first. I'm going to ask permission to come in. I'm going to set my intention. I'm going to say hi. I'm going to have a little chat. I'm going to hang out. I'm going to have some tea. Usually we bring some cemetery tea. This time I brought some moon water and chat, hang out, don't overstay your welcome, say goodbye, say thank you as you're leaving, pay respects, just like you're leaving a house. And treat the cemetery as if you're going to someone's house. Treat people the way you expect to be treated. Treat the cemetery the way you expect your house to be treated. Well, let us see what else we can do. I am going to show you some clips when we were here the other day with my mother and my daughter, when we were cleaning and restoring some of the graves and finding them. I'm just really happy to be here. I'm so happy to find my grandfathers and grandmothers and my great grandfathers and grandmothers' graves. It's funny, it brings back nostalgic memories of hanging out with my grandmother. That's okay. Well, I'm going to show you some of the cleanup and some of the tidying up and the before and afters of the graves of my mom and my daughter and myself when we were visiting here the other day. And I got to do some grave rubbings as well to update my book for my grave rubbing book, to add in my father's side. So I'll show you a clip from that. Oh, this is better. Yay! Graphite's better. I had charcoal. It's charcoal is, and the graphite picks up more detail than the charcoal can pick up. And you want a nice B graphite. What is this one? This is a 49. This is like a B6 maybe. $1915? I thought she was born in 1914, all these years. I thought she was born the same year as the Princess Patricia's. That's how I remembered them. Grandpa was 1913. Always have to wait till it dries for it. It should dry pretty quick. Thanks so very much for chilling out with me today. Comment down below if you have any rituals or things that you like to do when entering or exiting a grave. And I want to wish all of you an absolutely magical day.